Good morning. So we've been talking about defunding the police.
There's some issues that we ask police to do, like mental health issues or policing in schools and all the rest, that perhaps we can shuffle some of that money around.
Suck it up. Defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police.
Mayor Eric Garcetti saying take some of the money from policing, about $150 million.
I applaud Eric Garcetti for doing what he's done.
Not only do we need to disinvest in police, but we need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
So yes, defund your butts. Defund you.
Yes, I support the reallocation of resources from NYPD.
We will be moving funding from the NYPD to youth initiatives and social services.
And remember when everybody wanted to defund the police? And when I say everybody, I mean those far left progressive cities, Seattle, San Francisco, New York, and one of the most vocal people you heard in this montage was Missouri's own Cori Bush. She wanted to defund the police, but
she has her own private security. So, I mean, I would care less about the police, too, if I walked around with a bunch of bodyguards.
And so some of these cities, they started doing it. I think the most famous / infamous one, London Breed, mayor of San Francisco. We have highlighted the audio in July of 20. We're defunding the police. We're doing in December that same year. Hey, we're going to ask for more money because crime has gone through the roof. By the way, you get onto Google and you check you do fact checks on defunding the police. And you should see the way some of these news outlets, they flip over themselves and say, well, you can't link increased crime into every single city that did take money away from. You can't say that violent crimes went up because of that. We know there's a lot of similarities there, but we want you to look past the curtain. Don't look behind the curtain. Don't look what's going on. And that is important now because when it comes to voter concerns, what is it that we are voting on? By the way, 36 days. 36 days until the election. Are you all set? Do you have your ID in place? It's probably going to be we all know who we're voting for at this point, I'm guessing, right? I know who I'm voting for.
I'm still very confused. No. I mean, but people should be aware there is a police measure on the ballot in November, and that was a referred measure from the legislature. It's going to be, shall the Missouri Constitution be amended to authorize laws that increase minimum funding for a police force established by a state board of police commissioners to ensure such police force has additional resources to serve its communities. And this, I think, was in reaction to, the Kansas City defund the police movement, and now the legislature's put this on the ballot. And it's a statewide ballot measure, so we'll all be voting on that.
And everybody that said, hey, we're in favor of defunding the police, they're almost like, they're like kids who've been caught lying. You know, when a little kid, oh, yeah, Mom, I took the cookies. Yeah, Mom, I did this. They're like, it's like they've been caught lying to you because they have been caught lying to you. No better way to put it. Number one concern for folks when it comes to voting, typically economy, inflation. That's what I'd say for myself, too. I want the economy to be good.
100%.
Amen. Inflation, education, crime. Crime is beating out abortion, as a matter of fact. So crime is in the top 4. As a matter of fact, more people say crime. That is more important of an issue than abortion is. And that's a good thing because following the Dobbs decision last summer, we saw what happened with, the hopes for a big red tidal wave kind of took a hit. I think we're back on track now for that, hopefully. Crime beats out abortion. By the way, climate change, not even in the top 5. Who votes on climate change? I wonder. I'd go down West Boulevard in Columbia and all the yard signs. You seen these, Houseworth? Vote climate. Vote climate. What the hell? What do you mean? I don't see a climate on the ballot this time around.
There are also some signs in those yards. I've seen several that say we support our police department too. I have seen those.
And that's they love seeing that.
Yeah, they do. Branden, if I could make one point. Stephanie brings up a very good point about Amendment 4. Because it has not, and I'm not saying anything, even myself, I haven't focused on it probably enough just because people tend to think it's only about Kansas City, but really it is a statewide issue. And Stephanie, you are right. These were lawmakers in the Northland and other places. They really feel like Mayor Quentin Lucas, the mayor of Kansas City, and the council to a certain extent, but him specifically, they feel like he has really tried to defund the police, and that's exactly what this ballot measure is. It's Stephanie read it. It's one sentence, but it's a big deal, and it's not just for Kansas City, but all voters statewide will be voting on that Amendment 4. So there's quite a few, and then you got their marijuana. So there's a lot of issues on the ballot in addition to the Senate race, local races as well. But I do think that Kansas City PD funding issue is a big deal.
Well, and I didn't read the whole thing. I did read part of the ballot measure, but I do think it would allow basically the legislature to kind of set a minimum funding for Kansas City police. But it is an issue, Brian, you're right, that affects us all.
It does.
I mean, when St. Louis gets those headlines of like murder capital of the nation in Kansas City, I mean, we need people to travel to those big cities. We want people coming to the sports events. We want to land things like the World Cup. And if it gets a reputation as a violent community or a community who doesn't have the resources to support its police, we all have a problem.
And the World Cup is coming, and we're going to have literally people are going to have to stay here. As Senator Rizzo told me, the hotels will be full in Kansas City. They're going to be coming here. So crime, the NFL draft is next year. So this is kind of a big issue. There's no doubt about it.
And this stuff is important. We look at what's happening, for example, in Colombia. One of the things they're trying to do is, hey, all these people have like those surveillance cameras and stuff. Is there a way that with permission that these businesses, whatever it is, would allow the Columbia Police Department to tap into their video surveillance systems, especially in the downtown area? And most people, by the way, local attorney Scott Wilson writing a letter to the city saying, hey, we think we're in favor of this system. Any tool that we can use that will help police. So we have kind of a rare instance specifically for the city of Columbia doing something. When I say the city of Columbia, elected servants doing something, hey, do something to support the police. Don't be yanking money. Don't come up with this phony Citizens Police Review Board to go after police. Let's do something to help them.
Yeah, that issue is on, and I'll talk about it a little bit in the news. That is in a pre-council meeting. It's not in the actual council meeting itself. That's not to say it won't come up in the council meeting, but I think you summed it up perfectly, Brandon. And that letter is from Councilor Wilson, who represents the Downtown Columbia Business Association Leadership Council, I believe is the formal name. But as he points out, Scott Wilson, who is a well-known attorney here in town, he has, he's not a huge fan of cameras, as I think he points out in the letter, but he thinks this is a good idea, and it does allow the businesses to opt in. A lot of them apparently will because there's interest. They are concerned about crime, but it's in the pre-council meeting. I don't see it on the actual agenda tonight, but it's the type of thing that any council member can bring it up. So, yeah, that is something that certainly has been an issue. And I think the chief just the other day talked about this as well. He believes this is needed.
By the way, Chief Jeff Jones gave a presentation on Second Amendment Preservation Act Friday at the Columbia Pachyderm meeting, and it was interesting because I know probably everybody listening this morning, everybody who's a proponent of the Second Amendment and who isn't, they're like, yes, we're for SAPA. You get very different answers. Talk to any local law enforcement official. You get very different answers because what it's done to their ability to help fight crime and help solve crime. It's a fascinating speech, and it kind of echoes what Boone County Sheriff Dwayne Carey has said. As a matter of fact, coming up 7:10, Eric Wilde, police chief in Jefferson City, he is going to be joining us. So 36 days out from the election. It's crime in the economy, which bodes well, I think, for if you're in the Republican Party, that bodes well for you. And public safety funding, Marsh, that's the thing, the Jefferson City Council, this has been something they've been talking about for a while now, is public safety tax at the very least. Yeah. And here's the thing that kills me, because I'm also looking as we look at some of the top concerns for voters. It's the economy, stupid. 89% of folks in an ABC News poll said, yeah, that's the most important thing. 89%. It's the economy. Education is important. We look at what's happening in schools. We look at what's happened in local schools with the transgender thing and identifying somebody by whatever it is they want to be called. And sports, that is the number 2 concern for voters. Education, then inflation, crime, and then abortion, climate change, and illegal immigration actually beats out climate change. Is really anybody walking, I'm worried about the climate? I don't think anybody is really worried about it, except they pay attention to the news and they believe what they hear on the news. Like hearing this regarding defunding the police. This is MSNBC's Tiffany Cross.
Quite honestly, there had been a spike in homicides. That has nothing to do with Democratic policies, of course.
Of course.
Of course.
The spike in crime in cities that did start defunding police, like Seattle, San Francisco, all those cities, and we saw those horrific crimes grow up. But it's not related. Don't look over here. Look away. God. So I'm baffled whenever I hear people from the national news outlets, but this isn't because of the policies of Democrats. It's like the same people in these polls who say that Joe Biden is doing a good job. This ABC survey that we've been talking about, 36 days from the election, Biden's approval ratings have plummeted since he took office. We already knew that. But here's the thing that gets me. Only 22% strongly approve of his performance. But that's still 22%. More than 1 out of 5 people think he's doing a really good job. And I would just love the opportunity to sit down and sit at the landing zone and have lunch with these people. Like, how is it that you think Joe Biden is doing a really good job? Seriously, I don't want to engage you in an argument. I'm just curious.
I don't know that they think he's doing a really good job, but he's like, you can't hate someone who you feel sorry for. And so I think when people are asked, do you approve of the job? Like, it's like asking like a question about your senile grandpa, and you're not going to say like, no, because you feel guilty. You're like, well, for as old as he is and all the things I know, for like Joe Biden, he's doing okay.
Pity. It's pity.
Yeah.
He gets the pity vote. Jefferson City Police Chief Eric Wilde is here. Coming up 7:10 this morning, we'll talk about defunding the police and other things happening. Jim Musgrave, who is running for the seat currently held by Sarah Walsh in the state legislature, he joins us 7:35. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer is here at 8:10 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, Brian Hounsworth, Mr. John Marsh is here, getting ready for the daily D.C. rundown with Stephanie Bell. What do you have for us?
The Supreme Court is back in session. We'll have an update.
All right, some high
Well, listen, Stacey Abrams and her group lost on every single count in that ruling Friday. It's sad that since day one, she's used this whole process to line her pockets, sow distrust in democratic institutions, and build her celebrity status.
That's the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, talking about a court case. Stacey Abrams and her kind lost on Friday. Has to do with the election laws. Remember these new election laws? They were racist and all this. And what happened with the voting numbers in Georgia? They went up following the passage of these racist laws. That's getting us into today's Daily D.C. Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
Abrams never actually conceded. Instead, she founded a group called Fair Fight Action. They filed this lawsuit. It's kind of been, it alleged gross mismanagement of Georgia's elections, and it's kind of been lingering. But yeah, if Friday, I guess it was put to bed. She lost all of her claims, and I just checked the Real Clear Politics average, and Kemp's up by 6.6. So looks like maybe, hopefully, she'll be going away soon.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Joe Biden is visiting Puerto Rico today. They obviously had a rough go with Hurricane Fiona. Although I guess they said power has been restored to about 90% of the island, but obviously surveying the damage still related to the hurricane. That's where Joe is today. Lots of action today at the Supreme Court. They will be back in session. Of course, it's really Ketanji Brown Jackson's first official setting. They've basically been on break since she was appointed. There's lots of really important cases, and I'm hoping we can get some guests on to really dig down into what's coming. But a couple of, I think 2 cases, prominent cases dealing with elections, some cases dealing with race, specifically related to college admissions, some more cases about LGBTQ rights, so lots of hot button issues. And of course, whatever happened to that Supreme Court leak, like the leaker?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I almost forgot.
We've stopped talking about it, and but I think Justice Roberts ordered an investigation. We've heard nothing. As far as I know, no one's been fired. But certainly you would hope as they start a new term, there would be some sort of protocols or announcement or something about, hey, we're not going to do this. We're not going to have any more leaks. Because obviously with all these high-profile issues, I think there's a risk of that again, especially if we have no idea how or who or what, how that leaked.
What an incredibly startling revelation that was this past summer.
Yes. So lots of very exciting things going on at the Supreme Court. And I think that's pretty much it for the Daily DC Rundown today.
And that's your Daily DC Rundown here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS.
Okay, sorry, I did leave one thing out. You said earlier, who cares about climate change?
Yes.
Joe does. Because you said nobody cares about climate change. And apparently Joe Biden is saying the federal fleet is going to be totally clean, zero emissions, electric by, a certain amount. That includes the Postal Service and the folks who actually buy the cars, which is the General Services Administration is that's a little bit lofty, and they're lagging behind Joe's goals. So when you asked earlier, of all the topics, what economy, inflation, abortion, what else is in there? Climate change is at the very bottom, but for Joe Biden, it's front and center.
What is killing me is to see more and more of these headlines is demand skyrockets for electric vehicles. Demand is not skyrocketing. It simply is not. It's government saying, states like California and now New York saying, we're taking away your freedom of choice to buy gasoline-powered engines by 2035. So there is not an increase in demand. There is an increase in government entities making you buy some of that stuff. That's crazy. Who's more racist? Kamala or Pelosi, man? They both went up to the plate this weekend trying to outdo each other in their racism. Hear what both of them said, and there's a cool board game that honors a mid-Missouri city. We're covering that 5 minutes from now.
Today, we brought in a group of conservative young women and wanted to get their honest opinions about what they're looking for in the guys they date. What are you looking for in a partner?
They just have to be a conservative.
Definitely someone that wants to have kids.
I like an independent man. Personally, I like the alpha male vibe.
I want a man who really loves his family.
Definitely someone whose faith is important to them.
For me, it's someone who actually wants to meet my parents.
Why do you want to date a conservative?
For me, at least I know that we're going to start off with some shared values.
Well, the conservative men I've dated at least know how to treat me like a woman.
In my personal experience, conservative guys have better manners.
I like that they understand their role in the relationship as a man.
I just prefer my men to be masculine.
And what's the biggest red flag when it comes to dating?
A Democrat.
No Democrats.
A Democrat.
Can't be a Democrat.
A Democrat.
That's easy. A Democrat.
No Democrats. It's a no.
Find the right match. Download the right stuff today.
It's a dating app for conservatives. It's called The Right Stuff. Get it? The Right Stuff. It's not a movie about a bunch of old spacemen. It's that's because that's what I'm thinking. The Right. It sounds like it's a dating app that stars Clint Eastwood and Tommy Lee Jones.
Brandon, have you signed up for it yet?
No, I'm not interested in dating.
I think I've never been on a regular dating app, but couldn't you, like, by people's answers and, like, because in their pictures, wouldn't you probably be able to tell
if they're a conservative or a progressive?
I would suspect, yes.
Huh.
I mean, maybe sometimes. You know, I've always wondered how people who have differing political views make it work with relationships, because it does happen sometimes.
Yeah. That's a great example.
And I've always wondered how that works. Like, do you just agree to not talk about politics?
I think so.
So it doesn't start any arguments? I don't know. I think it would be hard because that's a lot of differing views.
Especially now, it would seem like. I mean, I don't know if 10 years ago it'd be that big of a deal. But it would depend on, I guess, what they believe in. But mostly I'm interested, okay, so if I could look at them and tell, if I could stereotype, could I tell they were a conservative or a progressive? I think some of the progressive stuff, it's easy. It's a no-brainer. Jesus sandals, they reek of patchouli, and they wear headbands and John Lennon glasses. Marsh, it might be a little bit overkill, but you see what I'm saying?
But I think... And I think there can be some overlap. Like, I know people who, like, maybe one of them is more like fiscally conservative, but like really on the social side doesn't, is pretty open to things. And I know people who are, then the other partner is very like liberal on the social issues, which the conservative, I don't know that they disagree. They're just like, they don't care. But still fiscally conservative. So it works sometimes, but I agree with you that it's probably working less and less as time goes on. That right now, I think it would be really hard, if you voted for Trump, to date someone who voted for Joe Biden.
Because some of that stuff, I don't know if I could do it. Because here's the thing that gets me the most. And listen, we have friends. I think all of us here on the show, we have people in our circle of life that are on a different political plane than we are, and some of them are even guests of the show here from time to time. Doesn't mean we don't get along, but when I want to be involved in a relationship, because here's the number one quality I think of progressives that I can't stand. It's the hypocrisy. I can't believe you're sending illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard. What the hell you want? It's a sanctuary city. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? I can't go to this because of the COVID outbreak. But then you're still doing that. It's the hypocrisy. That's what would bother me most about these people, the political hypocrisy. Huh.
Well, and I think now we're hearing a lot in the congressional races about candidate quality. And so I do think a lot depends on the person, because I think there are liberals out there that I would consider undateable, and there are liberals out there that it's based on, I think, the person too, because I think, I have a lot of liberal friends in my circles, and we can have a reasonable conversation and we can agree to disagree. And of course we have some agreements on some issues. But so I suspect a lot of it, like this congressional races in dating, has to do with candidate quality.
David says via text 874-9390, I'm there. Don't talk politics. Hannah, since you're the one that's probably dated more recently than any of us, when you dated the guy who you are now going to marry and have 8 kids with, the house with a white picket fence.
8 kids? Whoa.
8 kids.
That is a lot of kids.
That's how I picture it anyway. When you guys first started dating, was politics, is that something that even filters into early conversations when you start courting a young man?
Maybe a little bit. It's not something that we spent a lot of time talking about. I actually started working here right after him and I started talking. We weren't even officially dating yet when I started this job. So that kind of
gave it away.
Gave it away a little bit. And of course he started listening more and more. So I don't know. We don't really have any major disagreements. We're pretty like-minded. But early on in our relationship, I don't think it's something that we put a lot of weight on. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of like you could tell that we kind of agreed.
I wonder if that's why Trudy Bush Valentine won't come on the show, because just by virtue of us contacting her from a talk station, she automatically has made some assumptions about us. She is stereotyping. Stereotyping does not always work, but it does a lot of times. And in her case, she's probably right not to come on to the show.
What we've heard that from guests that we've had on the show, and they said, hey, people in my community, whatever that might be, told me, hey, maybe you should think twice before you go on that crazy conservative talk station. And then they come on and they're like, this has been so much fun. And then said, and I heard people from the community, they heard the interview. It was great for me. Yeah. It's been a wonderful experience.
Yeah. The one where he's grilling?
There's a new one.
Oh, that he worked in. Yeah. I did her laundry as a little kid.
And he only calls her. And he only on Twitter, I think, only calls her the heiress.
Oh, gosh.
He has even tweeted at least once him drinking some Busch Light. Just cracking a cold one open. Basically saying, don't drink, the heiress's beer.
Seriously, we have reached out to Trudy Bush Valentine twice, and they haven't even given us the middle finger. They're just completely ignoring us because we just want to see what they're like. Jonathan Dine, who is running for Senate as a libertarian, he's joining us on the show Thursday. And today, James Musgraves, who is running for a seat currently held by Sarah Walsh, 50th District candidate from Missouri House. He's here 7:35. Jefferson City Police Chief Wilde joins us 7:10 this morning. One of the things I want to ask about is defunding police. We know it didn't happen in Jefferson City, but we're starting to see some of the after effects of this. Wonder what his take is. And I also want to talk about the Second Amendment Preservation Act. Chief Jeff Jones, Columbia Police, gave a presentation Friday, Columbia Pachyderm, and it was a pretty good presentation. I want to get that Chief Wilde's take on it. Welcome to the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
That's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. There's Mr. John Marsh. So who's more racist? Pelosi. I'll let you decide. Nancy Pelosi or Kamala Harris. This is Nancy Pelosi, and I'll spare you the whole, can you imagine if a Republican would have said this, but you get the point. Nancy Pelosi.
We have a shortage of workers in our country, and you see even in Florida, some of the farmers and the growers saying, why are you shipping these immigrants up north? We need them to pick the crops.
God. Even Hannah's like, oh my.
Yikes.
So there in this corner we have Nancy Pelosi. We need the illegal immigrants to stay in Florida and pick the oranges and pick the cotton that grows in the northern part of the state. And then in this corner, Kamala Harris.
Lowest income communities and our communities of color that are most impacted by these extreme conditions and impacted by issues that are not of their own making. And so absolutely. And so we have to address this in a way that is about giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity.
So in other words, we're going to base hurricane relief on the color of your skin. Because we all didn't get to start at the same point in life. So we're going to be, who's more racist there? It's a rhetorical question, 874-9390. So Pelosi saying we need the illegals to stay back in Florida and pick the crops. And again, we will spare you well, what if what if Marco Rubio said that? What if DeSantis said that? And then Kamala saying, well, we got to base how we help people. By the way, people in Florida were kind of freaked out. More than 50 people have died. You've got billions of dollars of damage, and people going, wait a minute, I'm not the right color. Kamala's going to make me stand in the back of the line to get relief. Who's more racist, Kamala or Pelosi? Coming up just a few minutes from now here on the show, Stephanie told us this great story about a chess cheating scandal. Happened in Missouri. It's pretty big. It was a tournament or something. Rex Singfield, who we know the name in political circles and the money guy in a lot of Missouri politics. He's big on chess. And there was this cheating scandal at a chess tournament that happened in Missouri where somebody was apparently using some kind of vibrating device to help them cheat in a chess match.
Allegedly.
And it became a really big thing. Over the weekend, big cheating in another kind of tournament for another type of sport. You got to hear this story. We'll do that for you 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
My grandfather served in World War II and was a butcher. My dad worked the midnight shift at Anheuser-Busch. I'm Eric Schmidt, and these men taught me about hard work. In college, I gave tours and took out the trash at the estate Trudy Bush Valentine grew up on. As Attorney General, I've taken violent felons off the streets. As your senator, I'll fight for the forgotten men and women Joe Biden's left behind. I approve this message because it's time to take our country back.
Eric Schmidt, current Attorney General. We voted for him to be our Attorney General. And now, of course, running for Senate, his latest campaign ad. I do kind of love that because he has talked on more than one occasion about how he used to work at Grant's Farm, owned by the Anheuser-Busch family, i.e. Trudy Bush Valentine. Says, I've taken out the trash at her house. Hell, I've done her laundry. I've fed her dogs. Took her pet ducks for a walk. I've done all that stuff. I don't know if any of that's true, but that's his latest campaign ad. Polls, for what the polls are worth, shows that he has been leading consistently throughout this race. I think even like double-digit lead. Election 36 days away. And again, I want to remind you, really, so because we get this a lot via text, who doesn't have a picture ID, who doesn't have a picture ID. We saw the whole thing with voting laws in Georgia Friday. Stacey Abrams, who criticized the laws that actually increased the number of people that voted in the last election in Georgia. But all those laws, they were racist. More people actually showed up to vote. She lost her case. Latest appeal on Friday. So the big thing we hear here, well, who doesn't have a photo ID? And if you don't, there's a lot of folks that'd be willing to take you out and get one. Local State Rep Cherie Tulsa-Reich will make sure you get one. Our Secretary of State, Mr. Jay Ashcroft, will make sure that you get one. But here's the thing that we're starting to encounter. Make sure that your valid photo ID is not expired, because then it's not a valid enough photo ID to vote. So make sure you get that done. Welcome into the show. Want to thank everybody for joining us. Tiger Tailgate. We do these all season long. Every home game, every Mizzou home football game, 2 hours prior to kickoff, man, we feed you, drink, you get to hang out with some of your friends here from the radio station. Almost an epic night this past Saturday, but couldn't pull off the upset win over Georgia. We were hopeful there. We felt good for about 45 minutes worth of football, Marsh. Would you say that's accurate? Like for 45 minutes, it felt good to be a Tiger fan, didn't it? And then it didn't. And then they lost. Glad you could be here. Stephanie was sharing with us last week, great story about big chess tournament. I think it was in St. Louis, and somebody was cheating using a very untoward method of cheating. With allegedly with a little device that would vibrate and I guess signal somebody that a fishing tournament went crazy. We even have some of the audio, man. I mean, these people were like, call the cops. Check this out.
Everybody listen to me right now. Jake, I want you to leave. I don't want anybody to touch these guys. I want you to go to jail. Jason, we got to file police.
We're going to kill these people. Call the cops. So here's what happened. This was in Cleveland, Ohio. It was a fishing tournament. And a couple of dudes.
A fishing tournament?
A fishing tournament.
Yikes.
Is that considered a sport?
Yes.
Okay. Just check it. The two fishermen, Chase Kaminsky and Jake Runyon, and apparently is what they did is they were stuffing when they were catching their fish. They were taking lead weights and forcing them down the throats of the fish. So when they would go and weigh, the fish were weighing more. Somebody got wise to this, and they started cutting fish open. And the place freaked out. They're cheating in a fishing tournament, which seems like that's just something you just don't do. I think fishermen, good salt-of-the-earth people, you don't do that. But apparently these guys had been in trouble. They've been suspected of cheating in the past. They have won multiple major fishing tournaments. Last year they were disqualified at a fishing tournament because one of them failed a polygraph test. I'm like, does that really happen? People cheating at fishing tournaments. People will do anything to win a fishing tournament even. And I get it. There's money and you want to brag and say you're the best. But does anybody really feel comfortable bragging, saying they're the best if they won, but they won through cheating?
Hopefully not.
Can they do that? Coming up on the show this morning, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Jefferson City Police Chief Eric Wilde, he is going to be joining us. One of the things we're talking about is we have seen the complete and utter failure of defund the police nationwide. Maybe he'll give us some thoughts on that. Second Amendment Preservation Act, his thoughts on that from a law enforcement point of view. He joins us on the show coming up 7:10 this morning.
perhaps we can shuffle some of that money around.
Suck it up. Defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police.
Mayor Eric Garcetti saying take some of the money from policing, about $150 million.
I applaud Eric Garcetti for doing what he's done.
Not only do we need to disinvest in police, but we need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
So yes, defund your butts. Defund you.
Yes, I support the reallocation of resources from NYPD.
We will be moving funding from the NYPD to youth initiatives and social services.
Suffice it to say, pretty much everybody you just heard in that clip has, they've evolved on their opinions as it relates to defunding the police. And here's why: because crime rates have gone up, specifically in these cities where police funding was yanked from the police force. It's happened nationwide. Most of these folks, one of the most vocal critics there you heard was our own Cori Bush. Defund the police, defund the police, shouted Cori over and over and over.
With her own security detail.
Got her own security team. Hypocrisy. That's it. We talked about that dating website called The Right Stuff. It's just for conservatives. And we talked about that would be the thing about dating a progressive that I could not. I can deal with a lot of things. I'm very tolerant and accepting. Hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is not one of those. Want to bring in the police chief in Jefferson City, Chief Eric Wilde. Spent some time in the military, been with the city since the late 90s. Chief, we want to welcome you into the show. So you've been in this position. You've been with the city police department for a lot of years, but you've been the chief for a few months now, appointed earlier this summer. Has this ever been an issue in your department? Anybody talking, whether it whispers, whoever, anybody talking about potentially we want to defund, we want to take some money away from the Jefferson City Police Department? That ever happen? Mm-hmm. And that, man, that makes me feel really good. My sister is a police chief in a small town right down I-70. I sport the black and blue bracelet, which I'm always proud to wear. You can see it if you're watching on our YouTube channel. So I'm a big proponent of supporting the police. John Martin, who's running for State Representative Chuck Basie's seat, he goes like under the radar. John Martin, this guy will go and do cool things for law enforcement. And this is so besides the defund the police stuff with what's happened with law enforcement, mostly by a lot of the national news outlets and some of the things that they have said and the mischaracterizations of people in law enforcement. What is it like on the recruitment end for you and maybe law enforcement as a whole?
Chief, we appreciate you joining us live. I do think it's worth mentioning, and you touched on it as well, 70% of voters in Jefferson City approve that public safety tax, so it is significant. You talked about the shortfall of officers, if you will. Is it 10, more than 10? Do you have an exact amount? Do you know? Okay.
Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, joined by Stephanie Bell, Brian Hausworth, producer Hannah, and John Marsh. We are joined in the studio this morning. Jefferson City Police Chief Eric Wilde joining us on the show.
It also sounds like you got an extra bump from the sales taxes at G.
So let me ask you this. It's kind of a personal question, Chief. But over the past 2 years, and I feel like maybe we're on the backside of it, where it's not happening so much anymore. National news outlets get wise to the fact, hey, people aren't buying our lies that we're telling about police officers in general. But how does that personally make you feel, especially in the national news outlets, when we would continuously hear this collective disdain for law enforcement just because you were protecting our community? It was collective, and it was in our faces. Cops suck. Cops suck. That's all we heard from the national news outlets. How does that strike you personally? Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. And I want to ask you this. So there's we have a dearth of intelligence when it comes to dealing with homeless people in certain towns here in mid-Missouri. One of the things we keep hearing from homeless people is we're getting homeless people from across parts of Missouri. They're going to specifically the city of Columbia because the homeless community knows, hey, we get all kinds of free stuff there, and it's causing problems which have been followed in great detail by us and by our news partners at ABC 17, especially this Wabash bus station. The thing that's happening with customers outside of businesses, cleaning up feces every morning as your first order of business when you're a small business owner in downtown for a lot of folks. Has that caused any problems with law enforcement in Jefferson City? Jefferson City Police Chief Eric Wilde joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. When was the last time you went down by the river and shot some empty beer cans? I love it. Police Chief of Jefferson City, Eric Wilde, on the show. Anything else that you would like to add to be of service to the citizens in Jefferson City this morning before we let you go, Chief? I know you were in a leadership position for a long time with the police department before you were tabbed as chief this past summer. Now that you've been in the job for, 3 months at least, anything that is different than what you were anticipating? You're in it for a few months, and I'm going, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, or has it been pretty much as expected? All right. Yeah. All right. Police chief in Jefferson City taking shots at Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning. And you heard it live on News Radio 104.5 KWS 93.9 The Eagle. Chief Eric Wilde, thank you for your time this morning. We do appreciate what you do for our community. All right, coming up 5 minutes from now, what's hot with Hannah? What do you got?
It's officially spooky season, and it starts my whole month of Halloween-related What's Hot with Hannah stories. Woohoo! Yay!
Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:27.
time for what's she said with disappointment in her voice.
It's disappointment, but it's not surprise.
7:27, time for What's Hot with Hannah.
October might have snuck up on you since it happened over the weekend, but it's officially October. October 3rd. Today is Mean Girls Day, which I'm not sure many in our audience will understand that reference.
So there's a movie, Mean Girls, right?
Yeah.
And it was like Lindsay Lohan and people like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, look at you.
I know, right?
None of us wore pink today for Mean Girls Day, but it's fine. But October marks the official start of spooky season, which overlaps with pumpkin spice season quite well. And this real estate agent has gone viral for kind of doing something fun with their latest real estate listing in New Hampshire. Basically, they posted the pictures online of a property that they're trying to sell. And in every single picture of this property, there is a Michael Myers hidden somewhere in the picture. So in some of the pictures, he's like front and center, not hiding at all. It looks like the master bedroom. He's kind of laying on the bed, real cutesy, with his hands tucked under his chin. But in other pictures, he's like creeping in the background somewhere. So it's a really fun game of like, where's Waldo? But it's Michael Myers from the Halloween movies.
Very nice. And there's pictures on our social medias?
Yep, they're on the Wake Up Facebook page.
All right, very cool. So you can go there and check that out. A realtor with a sense of humor. By the way, local Columbia Board of Realtors saying that the housing market, at the very least, here in mid-Missouri is kind of getting back on track. I was talking to a realtor Friday at the Columbia Pachyderm. She says, yeah, we're kind of getting back on track, but we don't know what the track looks like. That might be a good way of putting it.
Sounds promising.
Coming up, the guys running for Sarah Walsh's seat in the state legislature, Jim Musgraves, is going to be joining us.
can tell you in the state of Florida, you never know what may be lurking behind somebody's home. And I would not want to chance that if I were you, given that we're a Second Amendment state.
Is what the governor of Florida is saying. Don't be coming and looting in our state, because that's what sucky people do whenever there's disasters. They go and they steal stuff, or whenever they're upset with the cops, they go and steal packs of cigarettes from stores in St. Louis. Governor DeSantis is saying, yeah, don't do it here. You know, we are a Second Amendment state.
You know, you might mess around and find out.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's a story, Escambia County, Florida, which is the Panhandle. It's actually where Pensacola is. A man walked into a convenience store, walked in with a gun and said, hey, I'm from Chicago, bro. Got his gun, getting ready to rob the place. Dude walks out from behind the counter, says, yeah, well, I'm from Florida. Look at the size of my gun. The dude from Chicago that came in with the gun was like, oh, nice gun. Turned around and walked out. Crazy. Welcome to the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, producer Hannah. I am Branden Rathert, and we are joined by Jim Musgraves. He is the guy that is running for the 50th district in the state legislature in the Missouri House. Seat currently held by Sarah Walsh. He's been out on the campaign trail. Want to hear what's going on out there. But first, want to ask Jim, do you find anything distasteful about what Governor Ron DeSantis said?
Absolutely not. I used to live, as you know, Brandon, I used to live down in the Panhandle in Pensacola, Florida. For several years, my wife and kids were there longer than I was while I was gallivanting the globe and part of the U.S. Navy. But I'm not offended by what Governor DeSantis said. I think governors across the country could learn a little something from DeSantis.
I like it. All right, our guest, Jim Musgraves, served in the United States Navy, has done a lot of things for a lot of years, and now running for that 50th district seat in the State House in Jefferson City, currently held by Sarah Walsh. Let me ask you this, because the first challenge you're facing, it's a redrawn district. How does that affect your campaigning and your confidence level heading into the election 36 days from now?
Well, I'll tell you what, it makes it more of a challenge. The redraw, it's a much smaller space geographically, but it's definitely more blue, if you will, in terms of the political makeup. What I am finding, though, is that as I walk around and knock on doors and meet people and talk to them, is that the issues cross party lines. They're mostly the same, in terms of what they're concerned about. The economy, it's funny that Joe Biden's in the White House, Brandon, and we're reaching back in time to James Carville's "It's the Economy, Stupid," when he was running Bill Clinton's campaign. But it's the economy, and followed by crime as well as public education, and those two swap back and forth. But the issues are similar.
Let me ask you, this is kind of interesting, because when we started our show a little bit after 6 o'clock this morning, we were talking about these folks, defund the police and how that's just not how that's not working. And so we looked at some of the bigger issues that people are, when we go to the polls 36 days from now on a national level. So we've got like the top 5 issues. So I want to ask you, before I reveal nationally, roughly, what are you hearing locally are some of the bigger issues when you're campaigning?
Like I said, the biggest issue right now is what it costs people to live. Okay. The economy is the big one. And I think it's probably either or for number 2 and number 3 is going to be the education system. There's some concerns there. And then the violent crime, which is creeping up because, as you know, every state's a border state now.
Yep.
What about this special session tax cut? Are you hearing anything about the state income tax or what's happening in the legislature in special session?
Well, I did hear that Governor Parsons scratched the corporate tax cut, but he still is either signed or he's going to sign the state income tax cut, lowering the top level down to 4.5%. That's last I heard.
And that is correct. We just don't know the exact date right now, Mr. Musgraves. As soon as we find out, we'll let people know. But that's being worked on. Could happen this week at the Capitol. But again, Kelly Jones is working on the details on that. Branden asked you a good question about the makeup of the district itself. There's 13 precincts in the new 50th district. And if you look back, sir, at the August primary, your opponent, a gentleman by the name of Douglas Mann, M-A-N-N, had 2,671 votes in the primary. He was unopposed. You were unopposed as well. You had 2,269, ballpark about 400 votes less than him. Granted, it was in a primary. Do you read anything into those numbers that he received more votes or that there were more Democratic primary voters? Do you read anything into that in this particular district?
Yeah, I do actually. With the redraw, I do think that the District 50 leans Democrat. There's estimates between +9 to +11 in leaning Democrat after the redraw. What else I see about the 400 plus more votes the Democrat cast was we need to get the conservatives out to vote. I mean, that's first I was stunned how low the voter turnout was, and then I think if we can get Republicans and even more independents out to vote, as well as shaking hands and meeting them, I think it's a winnable district for sure.
All right, our guest this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS, Jim Musgrave, running for the state seat currently held by State Representative Sarah Walsh. Before we move forward here, because I know John also has some questions here. So you were talking about what you hear on the campaign trail, 3 biggest issues, and you're saying, so you're talking to Democrats and Republicans.
Yes, sir. Okay. I don't. I'm knocking on doors, and I'm there to. I'll go down to Jeff City to represent everybody, not just Republicans. So you certainly want to talk to people that may not see things the same way you do. And understand where they're coming from.
So how does that work? When you go and knock on their door and you start talking, is there a point in the conversation that comes up? Do you go, are you a Republican or a Democrat? Does that typically come up?
No, generally what happens is they start asking me questions about how I stand on certain things, and they'll ask me additional questions, which will indicate that they're either more or less a Democrat or more or less a Republican. Okay. And it just, I don't ask them. I don't.
Right. But the point being is that both sides of the aisle, 3 biggest concerns you are hearing right here in mid-Missouri when it comes to elections, it's the economy, it's education, and it's crime. And I was asking you that because that exactly matches what our national list is telling us. It's the economy, inflation, education, and crime. Jim Musgraves joining us this morning here on the show.
Well, I think I spent a little over 31 years in the United States Navy. I started as, if I can put it into civilian terms, I started blue collar and worked my way up to white collar. So I think that gives me a broad perspective in terms of veterans issues for both sides, enlisted and officer. Over the course of that 31 years, there's a wealth of leadership and management experience dealing with budgets and building teams, budgets exceeding $100 million, building teams and successfully operating and accomplishing objectives in a wide variety of operational environments. That will play well, I think, down in Jeff City. In terms of what I can and will do for veterans, there is no mountain I won't climb for my veteran brothers and sisters, and I love all of them. I don't know all of them, but I love every one of them.
Let me ask you this. So you're out. My big thing I'm always talking about, and you've probably heard me talk about this before at various events with the Columbia Pachyderms, but messaging to a younger generation of people. Are you encountering younger, and I don't know how to define younger. I don't know if I'm saying younger, if I mean Stephanie Bell younger, in her late 20s, or producer Anna younger in her early 20s. But are you encountering younger voters? What are you saying to these folks?
I generally ask more questions and make fewer statements when I talk to younger voters, and I'll tell you, to be honest with you, they do think about the economy. Because they still got to stop the gas station, and again, I'm not quite sure what we consider younger. I'm 54, so younger is anything in their 20s or 30s, I guess, or even younger than that. But I ask more questions. I try and see where they're at, what they're thinking, and see if they're engaged with the political process and what's going on politically. I do ask them also. From a person, what can I do for you? What do you want the state of Missouri to do for you? What can it do to help you? And the responses are generally economic related, or they just don't know. They don't have an answer. You kind of catch them flat-footed when you knock on their door and a younger person answers.
Interesting, Mr. Musgrave. Anything else that you would like to add before we let you go?
Let's just get out and vote. I mean, it's a big deal. I think the midterms are huge, not just for Boone County and Columbia, but for our state as well as our nation. So get out and vote and make your voice heard.
You're right. We were looking at some of the, and I get that it was just a municipal election back in, just a primary back in August, but shock. We talked about some of our races, especially with that race with Eric Greitens. Everybody was talking about our Senate primary, but the voter turnout did not match the talk, man. That's for sure. It is important to get out and vote, and also make sure your ID is up to date. I'm sure you've got a photo ID. When was the last time you looked at the expiration date? That's the next problem folks are running into. Jim Musgraves running for the seat currently held by State Representative Sarah Walsh, 50th District candidate for the Missouri House. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning, and thank you for your time serving our country.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate you.
All right. We'll chat again real soon. Coming up 5 minutes from now, one of the most controversial
And we were shocked to see that when we Googled climate change, we were getting incredibly distorted information right at the top. So we're becoming much more proactive. We own the science, and we think that the world, should know it. And
we own the science. That is a UN official speaking at a big event. It was the World Economic Forum, and she's saying, so we would Google climate change, and the results that we got at the top of the page we didn't like because it didn't agree with what we thought. So they fixed it. You heard her say, we own the science. So they fixed that so that you wouldn't see. And see, that's that well, we don't agree with it, and we think it's wrong. So we're not going to let other people. It's just crazy. That's just what they do. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Powell, producer Hannah, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth. My name is Branden Rathert. Text 874-9390. 874-9390. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer going to be joining us a little bit after 8 o'clock, questioning some bankers regarding their investments in Russia recently. We'll talk about that with him, and then just what's happening in Washington, D.C., because it's just crazy. It's just it's really insane. I don't know if you heard what Pelosi, I don't know who's more racist, Kamala or Pelosi. Hear what they both said. It's like they're trying to outdo each other. Who's more racist, Kamala or Pelosi? You can hear what both of them said coming up at 8:35. TV show. If somebody asks you, what's the most controversial show on TV right now? I don't know. Maybe what are like the young and pregnant things that they do on the MTV 16 and pregnant? I don't know if they still...
They still have like toddlers and tiaras, like the pageant mom things.
I can't believe shows like that ever made it to air.
Right.
That's horrifying.
I'm thinking more of like the adult animation shows like South Park.
No?
The Simpsons, maybe Family Guy.
Yeah. There's a TV show called Ring Nation. And is what they have done is they just take video from Ring doorbell devices.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I guess, like America's Funniest Home Video, but it's specifically these doorbell videos.
I've seen some funny clips, like people falling off their porch.
Or people getting real up close to the camera because they're not sure it's a camera, and so they get all up into the camera, and they're kind of like, what is that? What does that do? But this is like circular marketing. So Amazon, It's an Amazon product, and now Amazon has a TV show.
It's their TV show?
It's their TV show. There's hardly any production cost. They don't have to buy the rights to any of this stuff. They only have to get permission from people.
So they're not just like spying on people and clipping it together. They get your permission. Okay. My other favorite, my number one favorite is people falling, for sure. And my second favorite that I've seen clips of online are like awkward first date front porch encounters.
Yeah.
Those are really good. Or really, really drunk people.
Yeah.
So those are probably my top three. Now I want to watch it now.
On TikTok a few days ago, I saw a gentleman panicking. It was like Ring doorbell footage that was picked up. He was panicking because he had just shot himself in the groin. And the caption did say he's okay, but you just see his sheer panic and
he's talking to the Ring doorbell?
Well, it's like him running around in the front yard panicking, and yeah, the doorbell picked it up.
And here's the reason it's controversial, because people saying we aren't taking surveillance stuff seriously enough. This is City Council is going to be getting information potentially at a work session real soon regarding a system they want to put into Columbia, and here's how it works. Columbia Police Department, with your permission, could tap into your surveillance feeds. So any businesses downtown, if they see something happening, they have your permission to tap into a video feed and want to see somebody that may have just shot somebody taken off in the car. That would help them get that access to it. But apparently it's controversial because people are saying we're not taking surveillance video serious enough. And then there's the whole surveillance thing in the first place.
I mean, we know we're on video right here. But now, like, walking around, you're probably, like, always on some sort of camera, I assume. I hope, like, the delivery guys take advantage of the Ring show and, like, put on a show, right? Like, if you know you're being watched, you know those, what are they, the airline people who do, like, a funny dance with the light up things? I hope, like, the FedEx guys are like, I want to get on Ring Nation, and they do, like, a good performance for the camera.
Ring Nation, that's the show. Coming up, the other show, the Blank Show, happening in D.C. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer gives us a front row seat. He's here at 8:10 on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Good morning.
We learned two important lessons during the period. Number one, there's a large risk in investing in volatile nations with dictatorial governments. And number two, your investments play a significant role in supporting those nations' economies. In recent months, China has continually threatened our ally Taiwan with military exercises and violent rhetoric. Should the CCP follow through on its threat to invade Taiwan, are your banks prepared to pull your investments out of China?
That's one of our local congressmen, Blaine Luetkemeyer, questioning bankers recently regarding their investments with China. Mr. Luetkemeyer, how did they answer that question?
Well, at first they danced around it, and then they, thank you, Brandon, good to be with you this morning. And then they decided that I got a little bit more pointed with them and said, look, if the government doesn't tell you what to do here, what are you guys going to do? And they didn't know how to answer the question, which meant they're going to keep their investments in China. It makes them too much money. They're worried about quarterly dividends over the success and the protection of our own country. And that's the point I was trying to make, is the hypocrisy of their programs. They say one thing, they do another. Investing in China is like playing Russian roulette. You're feeding the lion that eventually is going to eat you if you're not careful. And these guys are a big part of that with the huge amounts of money. Well, three of the bankers I was talking to there invest over $50 billion into China a year.
And incidentally, Congressman, we have used the word hypocritical a lot this morning, and now you're adding to that. We appreciate that. We talk about the hypocrisy. We spent a lot of time defunding police. We've talked a lot this morning, the hypocrisy of somebody like Kamala Harris saying black people will get favoritism when it comes to hurricane relief. People like Nancy Pelosi and her hypocrisy of saying conservatives are racist, yet she says illegal immigrants need to stay in Florida to harvest the crops. It's just crazy. Good to have you here. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS. Stephanie Bell, Brian Hausworth, producer Hannah, John Marsh. I am Branden Rathert, 3rd District Congressman. Blaine Luetkemeyer is here. Seriously, I don't know how else to word this question. What the heck is happening in the D.C.s of Washington, D.C., Congressman, with somebody with Joe? I mean, this thing with Joe, these aren't conservative talking points. These aren't excuses to make fun of him. That dude is the president of the United States, and he should not be. That brain is shot. Like, what happens in the hallways in D.C.?
Well, we have that same discussion that you just had. We talk about the hypocrisy of the Democrats' policies, and we talk about the lack of leadership from the president and Vice President Harris, and their inability to lead, their inability to have the mental faculties to be able to understand issues and articulate their positions in a common sense, understandable way. I mean, when you listen to Biden, it's just garbled nonsense, and then he turns around and puts his foot in his mouth with so many comments. It's obvious to everyone. I mean, it doesn't take a doctor to look at the president and see that there is significant mental deficiencies there. He continues to go downhill. It's really frustrating from the standpoint that, look, this man is leading not just our country, but the world. And here he has this inability to function mentally. When he goes and meets with people, it scares the dickens out of me. What kind of commitments is he making? What's he saying? How big a fool is he making out of himself and our country? When I was chairman for a while of the Housing and Insurance Subcommittee in Financial Services, and we had a situation where the International Association of Insurance Supervisors was trying to dictate to the United States how we do our insurance regulation over here. And so I was on a trip to Europe, and I sat down with those folks, and I said, look, you can't do that. We're the United States. We lead the world, not you. We're going to do what we want to do. You want to follow us? That's fine. And we don't intend to follow you. And those guys act like nobody had ever talked to them like that before. Well, it's about time. We need to protect ourselves. And I don't think any kind of conversation similar to that is what the president has. He never talks tough to these guys. Yeah. He threw a few shots at Putin last week, which was a joke because he had to repeat himself 3 times. It's like he didn't hear himself the first 2 times. Yeah. In the halls, Brandon, we talk about this all the time. We're very concerned about what commitments he's made, and just how big a fool he's made out of our country.
So, and we hear, and that's Stephanie and I have been big on that. He goes on a worldwide stage, whether it's him or Kamala, and they embarrass the heck out of our country. That is disheartening. We know there's a bunch of Democrats who have said, yeah, Joe doesn't need to campaign on my behalf. You've got a bunch of Democrats that are like bankers in a committee facing Mr. Luetkemeyer. They won't answer the questions, these Democrats, when they're asked about, do you want Biden supporting you? Do you support? So they're not doing that. Do you hear talk, Mr. Luetkemeyer? Do you hear talk from Democrats in Washington, D.C. that are like, my gosh, this guy is ruining our party? Do you hear that?
Yes, we do. I mean, they are as concerned as we are, although they say it in very, very hushed tones. They don't say it directly. They say it in the implication of their actions and some of the sort of hushed way they say things. But yeah, they're concerned as well. They're concerned for their own political livelihoods right now because they see that their leadership has took them over a cliff. They have gone with them. And as a result, they're going to go over a cliff with them as well. And, so they've got a lot going on right now, and they see no leadership in their party, and they're concerned about it. They don't know what's going to happen. But I can tell you that Nancy Pelosi, if you remember, over the last couple of weeks, has sort of been jockeying for a position to get an ambassadorship. Well, this is the leader of the Democrats in the House of Representatives. Why would you be going out there trying to hawk your services to be able to be an ambassador if you thought you were going to win the House back? I mean, if my leader, Kevin McCarthy, pulled a stunt like that, and I told him the other night this, when I was talking to Kevin, he'd get a phone call and a visit from me. It's like, what are you doing? You're abandoning ship? You're the captain of our ship, and you're going to throw everybody overboard, and you're going to take the ship in a different direction? What in the world are you doing? And the Democrats gave her a free ride on this. I can't believe it happened. But yeah, she's abandoned her own party. She knows she's going to lose the House, and she's already looking for another job. Amazing.
Congressman, we always appreciate you joining us live. I know your new district, which has been redrawn, will obviously keep Jefferson City and will keep Fulton. You will pick up part of Boone County. You'll pick up a big chunk of Columbia as well. So a lot of our listeners know who you are, and you represented them a number of years ago, but they'll be back in your district. So I'm glad we have you on. I want to give you a quote here from the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, Senator Bernie Sanders, who's talking about the upcoming election, and he posted this on Twitter over the weekend. He writes this, Congressman, quote, "The corporate media wants you to believe progressives are losing and that conservative Democrats are winning. In fact, we've got a record I'm pretty proud of, and we are only going to get stronger," end of quote. Congressman, your reaction to that?
Well, if you said what I said, it's laughable from the standpoint that Bernie makes a statement that they're getting stronger. What they've done is win some primaries, but what they've done is hand us some victories as a result of that. And I can give you a perfect example. There's a gentleman up in Oregon, there's a suburban district of Oregon that stretches out into the rural areas, kind of like my district does, from the suburbs of St. Louis out to the central Missouri area here. And the guy came in with me whenever I came in a few years ago. And he wasn't liberal enough for AOC and company. And so they ran a Looney Tune, a left-wing Looney Tune against him and beat him. And now that district is really out of sync if they elect her. And so we have a great candidate. It's a Hispanic woman who's a mayor of one of the biggest cities in the suburbs there. She's going to win that seat, thanks to AOC knocking off the one person that the Democrats probably could put up there that could actually hold the seat. So when Bernie says they're going to be in better shape, I beg to differ. They may be in better shape from the standpoint of having more of their people running in the general election than they did last time, but they're not going to win. The wave is against that sort of left-wing thought and ideology. So, yeah, I mean, they can, they can make those statements, but it doesn't mean they're true. If you look at what's happening, we're going to make great headways thanks to their ineptness with the way they put political people in the wrong seats.
Now, the House passed this funding bill to keep the government open. You voted no. Why? Well,
there's a number of things in there. Number one, it did nothing to ameliorate some of the crisis that we have going on. We have runaway inflation. There's nothing in there to do that. Instead, it deals with the effects of inflation, but not the causes of inflation. The border crisis. We did nothing with the border crisis again. Energy crisis. Did nothing with energy crisis. Supply chain crisis. Nothing with that. Opioid crisis. Nothing with it. They didn't address the doggone thing. All they did was kick the can down the road. And this is an opportunity when you have something like this to make some changes. Now, I understand that whenever you have, it takes a 60-vote threshold in the Senate to get anything done. And we're going to see this same problem whenever we take over in January. We're going to send really good bills to the Senate, and they're going to come back really lousy because the Democrats, regardless of where the Republicans or the Democrats take the House or Senate, whichever way, or the Senate, we're going to have to put up with whatever they send back. So we're going to have to work with it. But again, this is an opportunity for some change to be able to make something different in this. And in my administration, their only idea is to throw more money at stuff instead of try and fix things. And we felt that it was an opportunity to fix things. We didn't do what we needed to be doing, so I voted against it.
All right, 3rd Congressional District Representative Blaine Luetkemeyer joining us this morning on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS.
Yeah, in multiple ways. I mean, the people flooding across there are absolutely just flooding those cities and towns along the border. And quite frankly, we're probably going to win every single border congressional district except one in this election because of the lack of border control, the lack of interest and concern by this administration. But then people say, well, our area here in the Midwest is affected by the border as much as anybody else. And you're right, because of the fentanyl coming across. The drugs coming across it's breathtaking the amount of drugs that come through. Last year, enough drugs came through there to kill every American 7 times. I don't know how you can kill somebody 7 times, but at least that amount of stuff is coming through. That's how enormous the problem is. And it's not getting any better. These people have done nothing to stop this flood. The vice president goes out and makes these nonsensical statements. I mean, you were talking about the mental acuity of the president. Whenever you have somebody like Mayorkas and the vice president saying things like the border is secure, we have no problems with the border. I mean, they absolutely it borders on are they that mentally deficient as well? Anybody who looks at this and just looks at the numbers, 2 million plus already this year of people who have come across the border illegally. Anybody who looks at these numbers has got to believe that we got a problem. And the border is not secure. And for them to do that is just a slap in the face of every American who understands what's going on. I mean, the American people are not stupid and they're not blind. They see what's going on. And these people keep trying to just shove this stuff down our throat. It's offensive. And it really, to me, it really puts them in a position where if they're going to say those kind of things, nobody's going to trust them. The credibility is zero. So when they say something about other issues, they have no credibility. And so as a result, people are turning away from them. We're going to win the Hispanic vote probably in this election, if not get very close to 50% of it or more, because of that particular demographic is fed up with the nonsense of these people and the lies and the misrepresentation of facts that they're putting out there. So, it's amazing that they try and put this stuff out there. But the American people are smarter than that. The truth is coming out. People look at the numbers and they're shaking their heads and saying, we got to do something about this. And this is what this next election is going to be about.
And polling numbers would back up what you're saying as it relates to Hispanic voters here. Leaning conservative, leaning Republican. Final question, Mr. Luetkemeyer. So people like Mayorkas and Biden and Kamala, they lie. The border is secure. The border is secure. Do you think they're stupid or they're just lying?
Well,
Don't answer that question, Congressman. Don't answer that question. Anything else you need to add to be of service to folks here in mid-Missouri this morning?
Well, I think, the election's here about, 30 days away. So we're excited about being able to take back the House. We have a lot of things that we're looking at doing. We rolled out the Commitment to America last week. week before last, and that is our commitment to do the things that the American people want: a strong economy, a nation that's safe, a government that's accountable, and a future that's built on freedom. And the tenets of this program, if you want to go take a look at it, it's at commitmenttoamerica.com. We're not something that was cooked up in the back room of McCarthy's office like it was with Pelosi and all of her stuff. These tenets and the bills that were going to make these things happen came from the members who have listening tours around their districts and took those ideas and concerns, and we had multiple work committees that we put this stuff together. I served on the one that was jobs and the economy, and from that we were able to put into the commitment some bills and some ideas and things like that we believe are going to be very helpful and we can implement when we take over. So I think that the people are fed up, as you just talked about, Brandon and Stephanie and John and Brian this morning, and the people want some change. They're tired of having their dollars inflated away and not having enough people to hire for their businesses. It's time for a change, and we've got the ideas and the commitment that we're going to try and make this all happen. So hopefully people take a look at that, and November 8th, I guess it is now, we'll make some changes.
All right, Commitment to America. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you checking in with us.
Always a pleasure, guys. Take care.
Right, we'll see you. Coming up, we're going to be doing the Morning Bell Business News. Little twist. Only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you have for us today?
Well, these high prices are causing
Good morning, 8:29. Time for the Morning Bell business news with that little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
So a lot of folks are tightening their belts right now, and you might be buying less bacon or less Progressive soup or whatever it might be. But up is concealed carry. The people who do insurance for concealed carry folks, they said their membership's up from 300,000 in 2020 to 700,000 today.
Woo! And that's why it's the Morning Bell business news, that little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. Coming up, magical season for the St. Louis Cardinals continues. What they did yesterday, oh my.
We have a shortage of workers in our country, and you see even in Florida, some of the farmers and the growers saying, why are you shipping these immigrants up north? We need them to pick the crops down here.
And so we have to address this in a way that is about giving resources based on equity, understanding that we fight for equality, but we also need to fight for equity, understanding not everyone starts out at the same place.
Marsh, let me ask you, which makes you cringe more? Pelosi saying, we need the illegal immigrants to stay down here and pick the cotton and the tomatoes and the oranges in Florida. We need the illegal immigrants here to pick those. Or do you cringe more hearing Kamala Harris saying, well, if you're a black victim in the hurricane, you should get help first instead of the white people? Which one makes you cringe more? Yeah, and that's a proper response from the congressman there, just laughing. Welcome. And so over the weekend, Pelosi and Kamala duking it out for who can say the most racist crap. Pelosi, I don't know why you're sending those immigrants to a sanctuary city. You need them here picking the crops. And then Kamala Harris, well, if you're black, you should get assistance before white people in a hurricane. Crazy. The hypocrisy. That same word that Mr. Luetkemeyer used as it relates to those progressives. Same words we use all the time. The hypocrisy. The border is secure. That's not even hypocritical. Those are just flat out lies, some of them. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, highlight of the weekend.
Got to watch my son play football yesterday. It was fun.
Very cool. Where did they play?
Moberly, Missouri.
They play on Sundays, or they?
There was a threat at the high school on Saturday, we got word, and so the game was scheduled for Saturday and then rescheduled for Sunday. So they canceled, I think, everything at the high school on Saturday.
Yeah. Was it not the prom? Was it homecoming dance, I think it was, at Moberly? So they've had to move it to, which is a bummer. Can you imagine if you're a teenager, man, and you got your limo all lined up and you paid for the tuxes and the dresses and all this stuff and you're ready to go and nothing doing.
I was just kind of cranky because Saturday the game was supposed to be really cool or cooler, and yesterday we fried in the sun.
Yeah, it was hot.
There's John Marsh. What was the highlight of your weekend? Man, 45 minutes. Wasn't it great to be a Mizzou fan? For like 40, maybe even 50 minutes. For 50 minutes this year, it's like, it's good to be a Mizzou fan. And then Mizzou did what Mizzou did. Houseworth, what is your highlight?
I would say the being on the Mizzou broadcast, doing the scoreboards on Saturday night, but it was heartbreaking knowing that what Stetson Bennett is capable of doing and leading that team. And I also went to the Our Lady of Lourdes Oktoberfest yesterday at my parish here in Columbia, and it was gorgeous, great food, but Stephanie's right, it was hot.
I thought it was cool. Porch Fest and Blues in the Park, Jeff City. And I don't know how it's usually worked, but past couple of years, it's kind of like they got scheduled on the same weekend, and both organizers for both events like, oh, no, this is going to suck. We want people to come to our event. And the folks from Porch Fest said, no, we want people to come to our event. And now apparently it works out. It does them both well, having it on the same weekends. Hannah, what was your big thing this weekend?
Well, of course, I hung out at the Zimmer Tiger tailgate on Saturday. Got to meet a couple Wake Up family members. And then I got to go home and see some family in Centralia, hang out in Centralia a little bit yesterday.
Nice. We do those Tiger tailgates every Saturday before. Anytime there is a home game, we're doing the Tiger tailgates. Get on to our websites, 939theeagle.com or kwos.com, and you can find out where you can get your tickets for free. It's really a cool thing. The folks from Buffalo Wild Wings, Culligan and Mid-Missouri, Bud Light, High Noon Hard Seltzers, we feed you. And you get onto our website's whole list of locations where you can pick up those passes for free. Quick phone call, 874-9390. Rick, welcome into the show. What can we do for you?
Well, thanks for taking my call. Of course, listening to Blaine, one thing he said was, if the blue states send us representatives, we'll just have to deal with what they send us. And in the Constitution, Section 5, Paragraph 2, the Senate or the House of Representatives may expel with 2/3 of the vote any member of Congress for not for crimes, but for disorderly behavior. They don't have to put up with these people. Blaine is part of the Washington establishment, protecting the Washington establishment. He's not going to get back there and be for us. Otherwise, they would be doing these constitutional things that they are not.
So do you think there's anybody else in D.C. right now that would try to get to what you said in the Constitution, can expel any member from Congress? Do you think anybody could do that right now?
They only will if we, the conservatives, the constitutional Republicans, are calling their offices and saying, do this, because we've got to get back to our Constitution and get away from the establishment in D.C. And now for them shipping these migrants that they need as workers, welfare to work back in the 90s didn't work. It failed. In fact, our welfare system has grown, and we have to get Congress to force these will not work people to work or not eat. And that's biblical.
Rick, let me ask you this. So you talk about these establishment D.C. politicians. Who in your mind is not establishment in D.C.?
Well, Donald Trump wasn't.
Who's there right now?
Well, there is a possibility that Rubio and our senator from Tennessee, the doctor,
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul. There's a few of them that are pulling to pull us back to constitutional. But see, we, the people, don't care. Otherwise, we would be telling these people that, I was in Blaine Luetkemeyer's district 15 years ago. He didn't represent me or Republicans then, and he will not now.
So is he representing Democrats?
The establishment. He's representing.
So let me go back to who in D.C. is not establishment besides Rand Paul, Rick? They're all establishment. Really?
Well, there were those also who did work closer with Donald Trump to pull us back into a constitutional republic. But I can't name them all. I can only look at our people that we've elected from Central Missouri, because I'm really not up with who is the bad guy in D.C. from Arizona, or who is the bad guy in D.C. from Florida. I can't name all those names. I'm an old man, and I'm not that brilliant to start with.
Rick, thank you, man. I appreciate your sense of realism about yourself. I hear what you are saying. Yesterday, Busch Stadium, how cool was this? Albert Pujols' last regular season. Of course, we didn't know it was going to be his last regular season at bat. Clobber's home run number 702 in his career, and then Oliver Marmol, coach for the Cardinals, goes out and yanks all three of them at the same time. Yadier Molina, Albert Pujols, and Adam Wainwright. How cool was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. And the crowd, Ricky Horton actually almost sounded like he got choked up on the radio broadcast. It was amazing. There's still some time for him, and I think he tied Babe Ruth's RBI record. I think it's important to clarify. Babe Ruth lost 5 years because he was an all-star pitcher, one of the best pitchers. He didn't bat much for 5 years. That notwithstanding, it's an amazing accomplishment by Pujols, and he continues to impress. He's still got 3 games. Who knows how many he'll hit in the final couple of games at PNC Park. That's kind of a hitter's park, but great for people to see. It was amazing, and hopefully a lot more baseball here on the Eagle. No question about that.
Yeah, let's hope that happens. Anybody ever heard of Hartville, Missouri?
Yes.
Yeah?
Hartsburg?
Hartville, Missouri.
Hartville is, it got hit by a tornado a couple of years ago. Jason Smith went down there, called me when
Congressman Jason Smith.
He did, yeah, because I wanted to do an interview for the grocery. It has one grocery store. It's a small town, and it is south of, kind of south of Lebanon. Very, very tiny town, as I recall, like maybe 3,000-4,000. But south of Lebanon, south I-44, but a beautiful town.
Let's got to fact check you, Brian.
All right, fact check me.
It's not very often you get to fact check the news director. You're right. It is a very small town. Population about 594.
Okay, I was thinking the county probably because it's big enough for a grocery store.
Yeah,
I think it was a Country Mart that got hit, as I recall. But
there's a grocery store, Dollar General, school. It's typical. Like every small town has a little grocery store, a Dollar General, a funeral home, and Hartville, Missouri has it. Marsh, you know anything about Hartville, Missouri? Yeah. I think it is about an hour east of Springfield, and it also happens to be the population center of the United States of America. And this is a topic Hannah is incredibly passionate about.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know what it was on Friday.
Population center. So I guess if you put a thing there at Hartville, Missouri, half the population is on that side and the other half is on this side.
And what's interesting about that is the AP does a good job of tracking that, and that line has been gradually moving to the south and kind of moving a little bit to the west as well. I think Cuba was in that area a few years ago, but yeah, it's interesting that it's in that area.
Okay.
Basically, it's in the Ozarks now.
So help me out. If the line is moving to the south, then that means more people are moving to the south, right?
I would say yes.
Yeah, so it's all the DeSantis factor. Is that what it is?
Well, I don't want to say. I mean, that trend was starting before he became governor, but obviously a lot of people are moving to Florida. There's no doubt. But
so it'd be like back in the 1800s. Population center may have been like Sandusky, Ohio,
Sure.
And then in the 1920s it could have been Mount Vernon, Illinois, and as more and more population grows.
Absolutely.
Been there for a while, and we get a little bit of, a little bit of buzz off of it. Coming up, just a few minutes from now, before we get into the Gary Nolan show, we're going to do Center of America is right in Missouri. It's in Hartville, Missouri, a little town east of Springfield by about an hour. It has a population of 500 people.
See, you don't even know what it is. You stuttered through all that, giving me a hard time.
And it has a post office and a funeral home, and that's about it. Population Center of America. Paul says the attack center of the universe used to be in Colwood, north of Fulton. 874-9390, 874-9390. And actually, somebody, kind of what we were talking about earlier, somebody sent us kind of a map of where the population center.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, in the years. So like in 1790, it would be in the area that would be Maryland. Then in the 1840s, the population center moved to West Virginia as our population moved westward. And now it's moving west and south. And now it's...
Yeah, is there a marker, you think, in each community? Like, could you go on super nerd vacation and just, like, track the population centers across America?
I could see somebody doing that.
I could see Stephanie doing that.
Oh, come on.
All right, some of the things we didn't get to during the show today. So that J6 committee going to be releasing its final report. Guess when? Before the midterms.
Of course they are.
Columbia dude arrested in a fentanyl bust. This dude was selling fentanyl. We know where fentanyl comes from. It's coming from the border, and people think the stuff with the illegal immigration and the border, it doesn't affect us in Missouri. It does. This is a 24-year-old guy, according to our news partners at ABC 17. Law enforcement believes Brennan DeMarco provided fentanyl to a person who then dealt it to another man who died earlier this year from an overdose. It affects us here in Missouri.
Columbia's swearing in some new folks tonight, I guess, the department manager. So they've got a new public works director that's getting sworn in, an IT director. But I thought this was interesting. The new deputy city manager will also be sworn in. Do you know where he's coming from?
Yeah, Mike Griggs.
Yeah.
So
I thought you'd love that.
Yeah, he doesn't like me because he's one of those that doesn't like when facts are pointed out. He's in charge of the parks, and we have 3 funding mechanisms. And the condition our parks are in with 3 funding mechanisms is just, to me, it's ridiculous. Fred Perry, he's the publisher emeritus of Inside Columbia Magazine. And Mr. Griggs has come on this show. We've given him airtime before, and then I saw him at the Columbia Regional Airport, which should be just about ready to go.
Oh, I've been there recently, and I'm thinking, when is this thing going to open?
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
I just crossed my mind. Anyhow, and we did not have a good exchange at the airport, so I asked Fred Perry, I'm like, do you think Mike Griggs has beef with me, the director of parks? He says, I think so. I said, how come? It's because you're always criticizing his parks, Brandon. That's why.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. What do you got, Hannah? Anything for leftovers today? No? John, what about you?
Oh, I have my Hocus Pocus 2 review.
Oh.
Did anybody else watch it this weekend?
Marsh? No? Yeah, I didn't get to see.
So, I mean, it was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything I would rave about, and I still think the first movie is much better. But I thought it was decent. It was pretty good.
Oh, you know what I did happen to see over there? I saw Ryan Reynolds, a superhero.
Deadpool,
yeah. I'd seen the first one but never seen it all the way through because it was just frankly boring.
They're coming out with another one.
I watched the second one. It's really good. Went back to watch the first one. Still not that good. March,
they're doing a crossover with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, okay.
So Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds, which I think will be pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it was funny. It pokes fun at itself, pokes fun at Hollywood. Really good. Marsh, you got anything for leftovers today? Brian Gladney, he is the first responder with the Boone County Fire Protection District who died last year right before Christmas out on I-70. He is going to be honored at the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. It's coming up this weekend in Emmitsburg, Maryland. So I thought that was pretty cool. Tomorrow on the show, I'm excited about it. We've got to get, her name is Maisie.
Yes.
Maisie Boyd, Mazzie. She is 24 years old. She, if elected, would be one of the youngest state lawmakers in the history of Missouri. She's from Northwest Missouri. She joins us on the show tomorrow. We're going to hear what makes her tick. Gary Nolan Show is next. See ya.